And without wasting time, we will like to move on to next presentation by Dr. Reena. She is a assistant professor at Safai Medical College and has done her MD from AIIMS, New Delhi. And she will be talking about interpretation of visual field, another gold standard for glaucoma diagnostic. Dr. Reena Sharma.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you, GSI, for giving me the opportunity. So today I would be talking about the interpretation of visual fields, and I'll try to keep it basic. So the first most important thing is that the visual field basically is a reflection of the retina, and any abnormality of the retina would be reflected in corresponding part of the visual field. And what is important is that the two should correlate, and if they do not, we go back to the discrimination, as sir has very emphasized. So the normal visual field, yes, we know it's a hill of vision with maximum sensitivity at the maximum sensitivity at the point of fixation. And what perimetry does is that it gives us a pictorial representation of the patient's hill of vision. So when is a visual field indicated? If we talk about glaucoma, it is needed in all the glaucoma patients. Glaucoma suspect or pre-perimetric glaucoma, basically to diagnose the disease, established glaucoma, to follow up the patient. Neuro-ophthalmic patients and macular pathology also, it is being done, and it should be done wherever needed. Now, the common methods that are used include confrontation, Goldman, which is a manual kinetic wide field perimetry, automated static one, and multifocal VEP and microperimetry, which are the newer additions. Of these various methods, the most commonly used is the Humphrey field analyzer, and this is the printout of Humphrey field analyzer, which I would try to interpret it today. A few questions that we need to answer before interpreting this printout is that include that was this a screening test or a threshold testing? That is, we should know the test strategy that was used for particular testing. Was it supra threshold or thresholding? And the degree or the area of field that was examined, that whether it was 30 degrees central field, that is 30-2, 24-2, 10-2, or 120 point screening. So what do we mean by the term suprathreshold? Basically, the targets that are shown to the patient are set at moderate brightness. That is, they're kept slightly better than threshold, and the patient is asked as to whether he can see the target or no. So basically, it's a yes-no response, and therefore, suprathresholding is used primarily as a screening test and is being replaced by the thresholding methods nowadays. Now, thresholding basically involves the staircasing or bracketing strategy, where a brighter stimulus is given at a particular test point, and its intensity is then reduced in 4 decibel steps until the patient says, I cannot see the spot. So then the intensity is again increased until the patient again sees the spot. So that is where the threshold intensity for that particular test location lies. And this testing is then repeated in different other areas of the field to finally get the threshold intensities for different points. So this is thresholding. Now, within this thresholding, the algorithms that are used include the full threshold one, the fastback one, and the SETA. Full threshold uses the staircasing technology, that is 4-2 strategy that we just discussed. Fastback, 3 decibel changes in stimulus intensity are used, and a single change in response is noted, not done twice. Okay, and SETA is the most recent one. And as we move from full threshold to SETA, the timing that is required for the test decreases. SETA is basically Swedish interactive thresholding algorithm. So what it does basically is that it uses various parameters, most importantly being the age normative database, plus the result of the 4 primary points that are tested in each of the quadrants of the field. And the machine then uses these values to calculate the patient's best guess of the threshold at each of the test locations. And this also keeps changing as the field gets charted more and more. So the amount of time that is taken to point or to plot a particular point is reduced, and therefore the overall time that is needed for the test is also reduced. Now, the 30-2 basically is a test 76 test locations, considered most accurate and better defines the peripheral nasal step. 24-2 is considered better for following up with the patient. It basically cuts out the peripheral 30-2 points, except for the nasal points, which we consider important for diagnosing the nasal step. 10-2 tests the central 10 degrees of the field in a more tighter grid and is used in patients with advanced glaucoma where 24-2 is no longer able to give us adequate information because it turns out to be completely black in color. So the progression is difficult to follow up. So now considering these various strategies, which one to use? So if the patient has a minimal or doubtful optic nerve head cupping, OCT is considered better, especially with GCL IPL. But if a CETA standard 30-2 can be done as a baseline, if there is an obvious optic nerve head damage, CETA standard 30-2 is considered the best. And for following up a pre-existing scotoma, CETA standard 24-2 and recently CETA faster, which basically combines the advantages of 24-2 and 10-2 can be considered. For advanced glaucoma, 10-2 is a better one. Neurological fields, CETA fast 30-2 is considered good enough, especially when you have doubts on after examination of the disc. Now coming to the interpretation of a single printout of Humphrey visual field. The four primary areas that HVF printout can be divided include the reliability indices, which are mentioned on the right top corner, the various plots, the glaucoma hemifield test, the reliability indices. Apart from that, very important information is given on the top of the visual field printout, and these include the identity of the patient, eye that was examined, date of birth of the patient, very important because the machine compares the data of the patient with the normative age related normative database, and the stimulus background strategy that is used, visual acuity, and the reflective correction that has been given. Now, the first question that comes after examining the first part or the superior most part of the visual field is that can I really rely on this test in my patient? For that, the reliability indices are there, which include the false positives. When no target is shown and still patient presses the button, it's a false positive response. They should be less than 15%. False negatives, the opposite. They should also be less than 15% for the field to be reliable. Then the fixation losses usually measured by targeting the blind spot, that is the Hegel-Krakow method. They should also be less than 20%. But again, the bottom part of the printout is considered better than the fixation losses, wherein camera notes the eye movement and an upward blip indicates an ocular movement, while the downward blips indicate a blink of the eye. So a large number of ocular movements indicate the field that the field may be less reliable. An example of a patient with high false positives, trigger happy patient, the fields appear very white in color, and that is because the patient keeps on pressing the buzzer even when he is not seeing the stimulus, and therefore may underestimate the presence of scotomas. High false negative errors, the field appears darker in color, and that is because the patient is not pressing the button even when the stimulus is presented, may be fatigued, and this may therefore overestimate the scotomas or may show us scotomas which actually do not exist. So that is why it's important to look at the false negativity rate of the patient. So now we come to the various plots. This is the visual sensitivity and the grayscale plot. Visual sensitivity plot basically is the patient's raw data. So basically it mentions the threshold sensitivity at each of and every of the test locations which have been tested by the machine, 76 test locations in 30-2. And actual values are mentioned in decibels. So you can know the actual sensitivity of the patient at each test location. And this grayscale plot is basically a pictorial representation of the visual sensitivity plot. So this part is actually good for educating the patient or telling or showing the various scotomas to the patient. Because this part of the data is not corrected for media opacities and has not been compared with the age matched normal. So This has to be, in glaucoma patients, this has to be combined with the other plots to draw some conclusion. So this part of the field now shows the total deviation plot and its probability plot. This total deviation plot is basically calculated by subtracting these values, the visual sensitivity plot values, from the normative data base that the machine has, and the difference between the two is plotted at each of the points. So from this plot, we know how much deviated the patient's sensitivity is from the normative data base, and the probability of this deviation being abnormal is plotted on this probability plot, which uses the gray tone symbols, which tell us how likely is the deviation abnormal. So a darker point is considered the most deviated part, and so is likely to be highly abnormal. So this part of the field, visual fields, is affected by conditions that cause generalized depression, like refractive error, cataracts, which ideally should be corrected for before taking the patient for visual field examination. Then the pattern deviation plot, the pattern deviation plot and its probability map. This basically is considered the most important data, especially if we consider glaucoma patient. What the machine does is that it filters out the overall depression that is there on the total deviation plot and gives us the values here. So, so this plot is able to show us the focally damaged areas, which is important in patients of glaucoma, what we term as scotomas. This is another way of expressing the same thing. This is the normal halo vision. This is patient's halo vision, wherein the sensitivity is decreased at all the points, so there is generalized depression. And if this generalized depression is combined or also has a localized scotoma, it may be missed if we look at the total deviation plot. But if we remove the effect of the generalized depression from this plot, then we get what is termed as the pattern deviation plot, and is able to show us the localized scotomas. Now, coming to the global indices, they include the mean deviation, pattern standard deviation, and the visual field index. They are basically single number representations of the visual field. So basically, they are mentioned in this part of the visual field, and they're given a probability value whenever they reach significant values. Mean deviation gives us the overall level of sensitivity compared to the age-matched normals. So this value is basically calculated from the total deviation plot, and therefore therefore it is not corrected for generalized depression. Mean deviation of -2 hours is considered suspicious, and this can also be graded as mild, moderate, or severe depending on how depressed the mean deviation is from the normal. Pattern standard deviation is a sensitive measurement of localized loss. That is because it is calculated from the pattern deviation plot, and therefore, because it shows us the localized loss, it's important in glaucoma evaluation and progression. Higher the number, greater the loss, but its value decreases in patients with a moderate to advanced glaucomatous damage. Glaucoma hemifield compares the mirror images of the top and lower parts of the visual field, and compares the difference with the normative database that is there with the machine, and the values are then labeled as either outside normal limits, that is the difference between the two parts is significant, found in less than 1% of the normal population, borderline, generalized reduction in sensitivity, all the areas are equally depressed compared to normative database, abnormally high sensitivity seen with patients who have large false positivity rate, or within normal limits if the two are normal. And that this field is important because glaucomatous damage usually affects the poles of the optic nerve head, and is usually seen at first pole, one pole before the other, or you can see they say that it is seen in the superior inferior of the hemispheres. So coming to the visual field index, this is a parameter that is seen in newer units. It is mentioned in percentages, and it varies from 100 to 0%. So 100% is considered normal, and 0% is completely blind. And 75 to 80% of VFI means that the approach that the field is having a significant loss or significantly depressed mean deviation value. So it's a -6 or bursts of mean deviation. So, in addition, VFI can be represented in a graphical form in trend analysis, which tells us what is the expected loss of of VFI in the future. Now, these are the various commonly seen glaucomas, scotomas. A few examples showing us this picture, this field showing us a superior paracentral scotoma and an inferior arcuate scotoma.
Dr.
Showing us
Reena, sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, ma'am, I'll quicken it up.
Thank
A
you.
sedal scotoma in the superior field, arcuate scotomas, inferior and double arcuate scotomas. Though arcuate scotomas may be because of other causes as well. So we should have a look at the dilated fundus before we label it glaucomatous. Generalized depression is considered glaucomatous if it is unilateral or if it is more on the side with higher IOP or cup disc ratio. Multiple artifacts are also possible, so we should correct for each of these. This is an example of a superior field effect that disappeared after taping of the lids in a patient with ptosis. A rim artifact which disappeared after proper centration of the lens. A clover leaf defect, a pseudo-central island of vision, which is seen in patients with fatigue. This is a clover leaf picture for comparison. Altitudinal central scotoma and hemianopic field effects are commonly neurological, so we should go back to the fundus and have a look. Anderson's criteria is the minimum criteria that is used for diagnosing glaucoma. So a cluster of 3 or more, 3 contiguous or 5 non-contiguous, non-edge points with p-value of less than 1%, one of which has a p-value of at least a 1% on 2 consecutive fields, and the GHT outside normal limits on at least 2 fields is considered abnormal. But do remember that machines are automated, not automatic. So patient examiner interaction is also very critical, and the patient should be informed about how the test is done and what is being done in the test so that he understands the process before taking up the patient for perimetry. And the findings must always be interpreted in combination with the clinical history, disc, and the RNFL findings. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reena. That was indeed an elaborate and a wonderful presentation. I know it is difficult to cover a whole visual field in 15 minutes time, but you did a wonderful job. And without wasting much time, we will move on to second session, and we will take on discussion of this session after second session because we have overshot the time.